Is this thing on? So I'm going to continue sort of talking about violence to sort of set up the next series of books that I'm going to read. The next series of books that I'm going to read will start with Machiavelli's The Prince, and then into Sun Tzu's Art of War, and then Clausewitz on War. And those three books are sort of very classical literature for Art of War. It's actually older than the Bible. But Clausewitz and Machiavelli were sort of modern authors, I believe. It was sort of 16th to 19th century sort of books. So those those books are going to be older classical literatures that deal with violence in the human species, both the political element to it and sort of the organizational element to it. It doesn't necessarily deal with sort of moments of raw aggression. And I have sort of borrowing from various political and psychological theories, I have sort of an idea of what aggression is, what fuels aggression, and what fuels aggression, and sort of the main things that'll drive people to do aggressive acts, which are generally considered antisocial behavior. Aggression is generally considered antisocial behavior. There's sometimes what people will say is like righteous aggression, which is aggression that is ethical because it's stopping a particular threat. So my purpose of this video is sort of typologies of aggression, and borrowing two from politics and then sort of two from just philosophizing in a random sense. So politics, they talk particularly in terms of civil wars about greed and grievances and how they sort of complement but also contrast each other. So greed would be sort of serving a self, but also serving a collective, serving a particular collective. So territorial gain, or improving one's economic status. Those can lead to aggression. Think of those who are thieves. Think of those who are like those who commit fraud. Those would be greed-related circumstances. Improving your socioeconomic status, whether it be the social or the economic main driver. That is what greed is, and it's not necessarily an individual thing. It can also be a community thing, a group thing, trying to improve their own status within a broader culture, a subgroup within a broader culture that are trying to improve upon their circumstance. So that's what greed is, and then it kind of flips on the other side of grievance, where either a group has lost some of their economic status or social status, or they feel like they've never had a fair opportunity to gain social status or gain economic status. Grievances can be don't always have to be economic in nature. My theory on why there's sort of growing communities of men who are upset about modern relationships, is they're issuing grievances against women around what women at least say online about what they're interested in compared to what they actually end up spending time with, end up having sex with, end up having relationships with. And there's various forms of grievances. So like those who are not as physically attractive will say, oh, it's women only want physically attractive men. Then those who are short will say it's always men who are tall, or those who are those who are poor will say it's always men who are rich. So it's a contrast against whatever the greedy group is. And so they use their grievance against the greedy group in order to respond with aggression, with anger in response. And that is sort of the on the grievance side, basically an emotional response to a particular group or a particular individual on the basis of either having lost some status, lost some economic prospects, or just never having them in the first place. That's what grievance sort of aggression looks like. But then I have some other theories towards aggression, which aren't necessarily sort of the unethical variety. One is more neutral, and then the other is sort of more on the sort of good form of aggression side, which could be considered an oxymoron by some. But so on the neutral side, you got apathy. What that means is people just don't care whether a group becomes aggressive or an individual becomes aggressive. It's not impacting them. It's not actually it's not impacting them. Sort of if it started to enhance themselves, then it would sort of fall into the greed category. But the apathy category is more people who are allowing aggressive behavior to continue in order to maintain their own status quo, maintain their own present, maintain their own social status. They don't want to risk their social status by standing up to greed or grievance, because they think that would be diminishing to them. That would yield no return on the attempt to curb the aggressive behavior. And then the other is the form of interventionary aggression. And interventionary aggression is not always good in terms of solving the problem, because it can produce more aggression in response. But sometimes interventionary aggression is mandatory. The situation calls for it. What happened in 1930s Europe, 1940s Europe, it was necessary, the response. There's times where intervention is not necessary, and there are other means to stop the aggression without further aggression. But that's not always the case. It's not a mandatory thing that aggression always leads to more aggression. Sometimes there is aggression that stops aggression. But you have to be very calculated when you do it, and you have to be knowing that this circumstance will always lead to more aggression. And then act. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. And let me know what you think. What are typologies of aggression? and I'll see you in the next one.